needs to be, but that's okay. As long as you can hear me, that's good. So you shut the door. Let's manage it this way. As questions arise, go ahead and use the chat box to do that, and then I'll be monitoring that. As questions come up as we go through the slide deck, don't wait till the end, type as they come up, and we'll get to them as they're sprinkled in there. So good morning. My name is Matt McCarter. I'm the Grants Branch Chief at the Idaho Office of Emergency Management, and I got to work with a great team here to support the nonprofit security grant program. Today is about a subrecipient kickoff. Everybody on the call here applied for the grant and was awarded either all or partial. And so, number one, congratulations. Pat yourself on the back. That's I'm pleased we're able to support your efforts to harden your nonprofit targets so you can achieve your mission without distraction. So, congratulations. And with me, I have Greg Sally, and Greg is a contract help, and he helps with a number of grants, a nonprofit being one of them. And I'm sure many of you have worked with Greg on making sure your investment justification was complete and thorough and submitted, and so forth. So today, really, our goal today is to, number one, say congratulations. Excited to work with you all, those of you who are new and returning recipients. And also, I kind of talk about expectations, requirements to make sure this grant program is as smooth as possible and can support your work in the way envisioned. So with that, we'll kick it off. I'm assuming everybody can see my screen. I have a slide deck up here. Cindy Roberts, I see your camera's on. Give me a thumbs up if you see the screen that says goals for the morning. Awesome, thank you. So our goals for the morning, number one, to celebrate. Congrats on your awards. This morning, we aim to review guidance on programmatic and financial management of your grants, and some of our expectations and our requirements, and things we can do to help you win, to help support you by way of technical assistance, guidance. Our purpose is to help you be successful, and so that's why we're here. We want to clarify requirements on a number of different areas. We want to introduce our grants management system, and this is really, so the Idaho Office of Emergency Management's acronym is IOEM. So if I say IOEM, I refer to the organization I work for. So GMS stands for Grants Management System, and this is our official system of record to obligate funds, to approve projects, to have documentation submitted, and to issue payments based on the documentation. So GMS is critical. It's our system of record, and so we do everything through our GMS system. And there's an asterisk on this one, because the current GMS system, IOEM, has had for well before my time, the service contract terminates in June. And so June of 25. And so in the meantime, we've been working to onboard and configure a new grants management system called Amplifund. And so right now, that's internal between us and the contractor to get it where we want it to be. And then when that's ready for prime time, we'll reach out to this group. And we also fund every county and some tribes, state agencies, local police and fire departments, all through GMS. So it's a pretty big shift. And so we'll be doing some outreach and onboarding for our subrecipients when that new system is online. So again, the new GMS is called Amplifund. We want to talk to you about reimbursement procedures. The way this grant works, and all the grants that we manage, is funds are obligated, projects are approved, projects are executed. In other words, you buy the widget, you buy the service, whatever's needed, and then you submit invoice and documentation. Then we, as IOEM, reimburse those expenses. So that's how we work our grants. So we'll introduce those reimbursement procedures, and we'll answer questions. And the note on the bottom there is in bold for a reason, because we're going to implore you not to begin any work prior to receiving a grant award notification document. And that is generated by our GMS system. And those of you who have been recipients or subrecipients prior, you'll know what I'm talking about. It's an official obligation document. It has all the required information. And then your official someone official on your end will sign it, and then my director signs it. At that point, we can move forward. So don't execute anything before that obligation document is executed between both parties. That's the trigger for the obligation. So just want to be really clear about that. We've gotten a little bit of, there's been a wrinkle or two in subrecipients kind of moving too fast before those pieces are in place. So, and then we have to unwind and do more paperwork. So our goal is to avoid that. Another thing to be aware of, and we mention this later, is any project you have in mind that you applied for that requires altering the interior or exterior of a building, i.e. drilling a hole in a wall to hang a camera, or installing something permanent, putting a ballast outside the parking lot. So any alteration to a structure, inside or outside, or anything that might impact the environment, we have to do what's called an EHP screen. That stands for Environmental and Historical Protection Screen. And basically, details of the project are filled out in this document, and you would send it to us. We send it to FEMA. FEMA reviews, and it takes like 30, 45 days. They've gotten better lately. And then we give you the green light to go ahead. And this is around, again, protecting environmental and historical preservation. We don't want to be turning shovels on an ancient burial ground or, damaging a historical building. And so that's why this is in place. I haven't seen many that have been denied. Some might ask for more information at the most. So there's more details around this. You might be overwhelmed by all the information I'm going to share with you. Know me and the team are here to support you all the way. And so this meeting this morning is being recorded, and we'll have more information to share with you. So no, you don't need to memorize all this stuff from the top. And we'd be happy to send out this slide deck, just absent the recording, just so you can page through. The Bidders Workshop slide deck has similar information, and it's posted on our website. And so no, that's accessible currently. But want to call out those 2 points of caution. Don't execute anything. I mean, you can plan, talk about it, get the community together, figure out where you want to put the camera, the access control. But before you start executing, make sure that a Word doc is complete, and make sure any EHP screen requirements are complete. And not everything needs an EHP. There was an instance with an FY23 subrecipient, and they just put in some mobile racks for servers in a closet. They weren't drilling holes, they weren't doing any, so that did not need an EHP clearly. So, guidance and implementation procedures come in the following resources. These are all the resources to help me be successful. One of the things that I will distribute is the FY24 Nonprofit Security Grant Program Subrecipient Guidance. Most of the things on this list are federally developed and federally provided. The NSGP subrecipient guidance is Idaho specific, and it just kind of details how Idaho does things. It typically mirrors the federal stuff, but distills it into the most important pieces from my view. So we'll make sure we get that to the group. But a lot of resources to help understand how this grant works and how to be successful. So I'm going to pause for a second. I see Nick. Nick, good to see your name there. You mentioned in the application, I indicated that the building is not a historical building. Do we still need to do that EHP form? Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And there are some nuances with EHP. Things like if you had done one and it was approved in the prior 2 years, you don't need to do another one for the interior of a building. And so depending on whatever it is you're doing, go to reach out and call to see if to see what the appropriate path is. But typically, it's the execution of an EHP and getting that approved. And here's a call out, and everyone on this list has been communicated with, and this happens with most grant awards. There are awards being made, but then FEMA will put a funding hold on a certain project. I have another grant I'm working trying to get funds released from on hold, and it's just a couple different projects, and typically they want more information. If something appears unallowable, they might say, yeah, we need more information, but this is unallowable, or just give us some more detail. And I think that's the case with these. On the slide here, we have received all the information we think we need to go ahead and release these holds. And so again, these holds need to be released, and then we need to execute the award document, as I mentioned, and then we're good to go. So part of my job right now is getting these funding holds released. I'm not concerned about them, nor should you be. But I just want to call out those recipients in particular.
I scheduled that wrong. Sorry.
That's okay. All right. The document that is executed that I mentioned before is called a GAN, a Grant Award Notice. And that's the one that's signed off by your official and countersigned by my director. And again, hold off until that guy's done. And then another element I want you to be aware of is our responsibility to monitor, grant monitoring. Anybody who's received a federal grant before, or even a state grant, monitoring is part of just the normal grant management cycle. This summer and spring, all of IOEM's federal grants were monitored. So it's a bit of a lift, but really the goal is to identify areas of need for technical assistance and guidance. Is there an area you could use some support in? During that activity, we will review artifacts, policies, ledgers, and other documentation to assure compliance with 2 CFR 200. And that's the Code of Federal Regulations. Again, anybody working with grants, this should be familiar. With the award document that I've mentioned a couple times, accompanying that will be terms and conditions. And there's nothing out of the ordinary in those, but it calls out things like 2 CFR 200, veterans preference, the Build America, Buy America Act in terms of buying steel, prohibition on procuring communication equipment manufactured in the People's Republic of China. So there's some nuances in there. So those terms and conditions are part of that grant acceptance. And again, the pro forma, typical federal terms and conditions. Another intention of monitoring is to identify and document bright spots and best great practices. Then we were monitoring a subrecipient for another grant program last week, and they had a great forum in terms of property control and how they make sure their inventory control. They had a great process for it. And so I asked them to share it with me, and we're going to share it with the other subrecipients. So one of our goals is to identify what's going great and share it and hold it up. Additionally, our goal is to build relationships with you and your leadership and the folks you serve, so we can understand the meaningful work happening in the field and what you're able to do for your constituents. And really monitoring, again, the goal is relationship building. It's not intended to be a gotcha in any way. And really, I appreciate monitoring because it helps me understand what I need to do, if anything, to assure a smooth audit. And an audit is very different. Monitoring is more relational. Audit is more technical, and it's about documentation. So the goal is to make sure you have smooth audits. And then we want to assure the SAA and subrecipients adhere to grant guidelines. SAA is an acronym that stands for the State Administrative Agency. Every state in the nation has one governor-identified entity that works with FEMA funds for public assistance, disaster recovery, preparedness. This would be categorized as a preparedness grant. And so to maintain that status as an SAA, there's a lot of assurances we need to adhere to and things we need to do. And so part of monitoring is assure we're both adhering to grant guidelines and answer any questions as we go down the road. I'm going to pause there. If you have a question, you can type it in now. All right. Sounds good. Moving along. Oh, you know what? I do want to pause here and call out one of my colleagues, Joe Roth, and he's on the call this morning. And he's our community outreach coordinator. And our goal is to have Joel get to know you and your work as the community outreach coordinator. He does a lot of work with volunteer organizations active in disaster. And we're always trying to build a network of support and awareness for preparedness, mitigation, recovery, and response for disaster. So Joe's going to be a critical player in this space. Joe, can I put you on the spot? Anything you want to share with the group?
I don't have much to share. I'm just happy to be involved, and I will be, around, hoping to be able to come out and visit some sites when needed, and just be working closely with Matt. But glad to meet everyone.
Thanks, Joe. I realized I said that and I couldn't hear anything you said because my audio's not working. But thanks for chiming in and allowing me to put you on the spot. Joe's a great colleague and a great asset to the organization. So look forward to more relationship building on that front. So monitoring, check. So EHP, most projects in this grant program, given the nature of the program, require an EHP. And you all know this from filling out your investment justification. FEMA has an authorized equipment list. That's what AEL stands for. And it's bucketed into categories. And this slide calls out the categories that will require an EHP screening: 10, 13, 14, and 15. And the AEL is really easy to look up. FEMA, AEL, just Google it and boom, it's right there. You can review the categories. And at the end of the day, you already know what direction you're going because your investment justification detailed it. And so you'll know what needs an EHP and what doesn't. So this is just a statement that talks about EHP required items, potential impact to the environment, construction, modification, renovation, structures and facilities. Yeah, that paints the picture. So again, EHP is completed by the subrecipient. That would be you all. Submitted to IOEM. We submit to our contact in FEMA, and then they provide us the approval. We provide that to you, and we're off and running. This is what the EHP form looks like. It's a screenshot of the top. And Greg, can you talk a little bit about this?
Yep, go ahead and hit that button one more time there. But whoop, that went to the wrong one. This top information is information that IOM will put in. The subrecipient information is your information. Virtually everything you put into this form is going to come out of your investment justification. So we'll provide this upper information for you, and the rest you enter. And you will get that information. Oh, we skipped a slide. Okay. You get that information from your IJ. So let's go ahead to the prohibitions.
Yeah, and I think the IJ may be deeper down in the document or in the deck. So I mentioned before, there's some prohibitions, and these will come in your terms and conditions, but a couple things to call out that are new, and this one's new. We just want to be careful about procuring or anything China-made or China-affiliated in the telecommunications space. And the AEL should be our friend here because they're not going to put anything that's prohibited on the AEL. So that saves you from doing the research on what cameras to buy or to avoid. And when you take a look at any vendor you're working with, one of the things that we're going to call out is to make sure they're in good standing in SAM, the System for Award Management, SAM.gov. And we look at SAM.gov anytime we do work with a vendor because SAM.gov will indicate whether a vendor is debarred or suspended. And so this is one of the things when we come to visit and monitor you, we'll say, hey, well, how's it going? Well, tell me about the activity. And then if you're working with vendors, we might say, hey, did you happen to check SAM? And a good practice is at the time you want to execute something with a vendor and you look at SAM and they look like, hey, everything's above board, no red flags, screenshot that page because there's been instances where a subrecipient said, hey, I looked at SAM 2 years ago and they were fine. Come to find out, more recently, they were suspended. But at the time, they were in good standing, and that's all we need. Yeah, if you have any questions about items that are eligible or ineligible, go ahead and reach out. So here's some to call out that are non-allowable costs, or allowable rather. Contracted security protection is the only allowable personnel cost under NSGP. Day-to-day operations, not allowed to fund salary to staff. However, if you require contract security for a special event, you do a parade, you do a festival in the park, you do a community night, whatever it is, For a special event, it's allowable. But if it's like every day in the lobby, that's not allowable. So contract security, special events only. And you can't buy stuff for contract security. So, and again, if this is something you planned, it would be in your investment justification. And so if what you described was not on hold and funded, then you're good to go. So you can see some details here around sustainment planning for non-NSGP funded contract personnel. So they're really careful about that, and they want to be careful not to overdo it on the security aspect of this grant. I don't think anybody had more than 50% of their award for personnel activities, and that typically comes in the form of training. So be training for staff around stop the bleed or run, hide, fight, or things of this nature. But I think anybody relates to that in this call today. So this is the screenshot to request an account with the Idaho Grants Management System. So, and again, I'll share the slide deck. That Idaho GMS underline, that's a hot link that'll take you here. And so this is where you'd request access so we can begin setting you up. So when you do that, my colleagues Louis Magdaleno or Autumn Harris will support you in setting up your account and getting you where you need to be. So then,
Joe as an example.
Yeah, we use Joey as an example. So this registration information, really straightforward. Don't need a ton of details. It's a very easy process. We just want to give you a sense of the screenshot and what it looks like. And this is how you set up your password. Not dissimilar from any other accounts you have with a similar system. And then when you're good to go, this is what you should see. And then when we get that information, we'll then reach out to you via email. And the grants finance specialist referenced at the bottom of that slide deck, those people are Autumn and Louis, who I mentioned just previously. And then in terms of building your project in GMS, really, you just pull it from your investment justification. And you all should recognize this, the form at least, to identify here are the things we're going to buy, and here's the cost. Now, the costs in your investment justification, the cost was an estimate. Things may be a little different when it comes to actuals, inflation, supply chain. And so our goal is to get actuals in GMS because these are estimates, but usually they're pretty close. And then as you build your projects in GMS, a couple things we ask for is, what do you want to buy? What are the items or services or activities? And then milestones. And you've already done both of these things in your investment justification. So the grants management system is basically just reflecting what you submitted in your approved IJ. And again, this is an example. So we like to see milestones and then expenditures. So this is some information that repeats the statements I made earlier around the agreement. And what will happen is when you load your milestones and your expenditures, we'll approve the project. And then the system produces a fully executed subaward document. And this is an example from EMPG, which is a different program, but same info. This agreement is signed by the jurisdiction's authorized official and the IOEM director, my boss, Brad Ritchie. And then it kind of walks through how to do that. So that's what you can expect. You register for an account, it's approved, you get word from the specialists, you build your projects, we approve it, generates this document, sign it on your end, send it to us, we sign it, and then we send you a copy, and we load that up in a GMS, and then you're good to go. Well, the next would be EHP consideration. So I'm going to pause here. I see a question from Joey related to communications. Can we send out a press release and social media to recognize this grant, to celebrate this award, and recognize associated funding agencies? Absolutely. You certainly can. There is, and Joey, maybe we talk offline, but just for the group, there is some expectations from Homeland Security and FEMA to recognize the root funding source, which is FEMA and DHS, and it just goes through IOEM, and we facilitate the competition. So, but it's a great opportunity to toot your horn and talk about, get some publicity for your organization and the good work you're doing. Okay, Cindy Roberts says, do we complete an EHP for each line item in the IJ, or can we combine them into one?
It's all one.
It's all one. Cindy, great question. Yeah, it's all one, but we do want to call out, you don't need separate EHPs, but call out all the things you want to do that may impact the building in that way. Oftentimes I'll say, submit, latitude and longitude of the building, and then pictures of where you want to hang the camera or put in the system. So that's typically what it entails. It's not a big lift. Great question, though. Okay, moving on. So again, we reemphasize this. EHP is required before you can begin work. And this is a group that supports you. And additionally, I'm going to add Joe Ross information to a follow-up email, which will include the slide deck and the subrecipient guidance. So you have the information you need. So you have Joe's info, you have our info. And for now, I'll just sit and monitor the chat board and answer any questions that come up. Here's a question from Lucy. For vendors, do they have to be registered in sam.gov or just not shown with any red flags in sam.gov? No, that they want to be registered. You want them registered in sam.gov. And because if they're not, if they're doing any work with any public entity, and most privates take a look at it as well, they'll need to be in sam.gov. And some newer companies aren't, and you just register. So it's a process, but if you're a valid company doing business with almost anybody, sam.gov should have you in there. Good question. And I'll pause for any other questions that land. All right. Well, team, thanks for taking the time to join us. Beginnings are really important. And with this grant, we wanted to begin with some expectations and information so the process is as smooth as it can be, and we're successful. I'll also mention one other item, and that is attend to your milestones. And one of the challenges we have is, as you can see, there's a process with GMS, there's a process with EHPs, and if we wait till the last minute of the period of performance, too often we have subrecipients that have dollars on the table, and the end of the grant period's coming, and it's a scramble to spend the dollars, or they're unable to. So our goal is to not have anybody leave money on the table. And so just get ahead of your planning, get ahead of the things you need to do, and you'll be successful. And I see Lewis raises his hand. Lewis, I'll invite you to say anything, but just know I can't hear you, but everybody else can. Go ahead.
I just want to thank for those of you that I sent out an email requesting a W-9. Thank you for getting those to me. If you didn't get one, it's more than likely you are already in the state system. So even though it might be a new grant through us, you do have a W-9 registered with the state because the state has paid you a check for something before. And for those of you that have not gotten your W-9 into me, if you please get those to me, because funds will not be able to be reimbursed until we have a W-9, so we could set you up as a vendor with the state and get those reimbursements out to you. All right, I think that's all I had.
All right, Lewis, I see you're on mute. Thanks for chiming in there. So with that, Nancy, Jason, John, thanks for the nice remarks. We're here to support you. So congrats again, and best of luck with your projects, and reach out for any support, and we'll be in touch. Have a great day.